Afternoon, wherever you are. I don't know where you are. We're getting a lot of you are like across the world somewhere, but I am early in the afternoon here. Good afternoon from Southern California. This is the Dr. Cloud Show, and it is great once again to be with you as we talk about life and all things kind of related. I always kind of start out by just welcoming everybody. First of all, if you're new to the program, what we do here is we talk about the things that us shrink types tend to talk about. Just picture that. You can do this. You're in COVID land, right? Lie down on the couch, pretend I'm the shrink behind the couch, and I'm stroking my beard, and I'm saying, telling me about your thoughts, okay, or something like that. Whatever your caricature is, we can fit into that. We can do that. But really, what we really do is you just call me. Let me give you a number to do that: 844-940-2774. 844-940-2774. And even though this isn't therapy, it is at least it's sometimes entertaining, hopefully informative as I take your questions. Now, what kind of questions do we talk about on the show? Well, think of it the pie of life. I always talk about the pie of life. There's three big slices to your life in that pie. There's how you feel, how are you doing, how's your energy level, are you anxious, are you fearful, are you got some mood stuff going on, what we call the clinical arena, all of that thriving stuff, and in our moods and our thoughts and our anxieties and depressions and addictions and all that stuff that most people are going to encounter some point in their lives. That's what the stats tell us. Secondly, that second piece is relationships. And we have all sorts of relationships. Relationships fuel life, right? And that's where a lot of the anxiety and the depression and all that comes from as well. But our relationships, our connections with people that are significant to us, our marriages and families and extended families and in-laws and siblings and adult siblings and work relationships and all of that. And then thirdly, the third piece of the pie is what are you doing with your dreams and your goals, and want to be, accomplishing something with that talent that God gave to you, and put in there what's going on with that? Because everybody's got dreams and everybody's got goals. What are we doing with them? Sometimes it breaks down. And sometimes you've got something you want to accomplish and you find out, I try and I start and I can't get it going, or the voices stop me, or fear of failure, or whatever it is. And those talents and dreams aren't coming to fruition. Well, I want to talk about that as well. Because you know what? I think the research backs me up on this. We weren't really made to not accomplish anything in life. One of the biggest misnomers out there, and you hear this sometimes. Sometimes people say, "Well, I'm just a task-oriented person. I don't do this people thing. I'm a task-oriented person." Well, no, you're not really. You're a jerk, is what you are. Because even people that accomplish tasks have to accomplish that with people and be nice to people and work in teams and help each other get better. So there's no such thing as just a task-oriented person. Some people say, "Well, I'm just a people person." I go, "Well, what do you do?" "Well, just people." "Yeah, but what do you do with people? Like, what do you accomplish with people?" "Well, just people." Well, come on. There's some things we actually have to do in life as well. So life is both. We're both. Sometimes people have more people strengths than technical skills. Sometimes people have more technical skills than people strengths. But you know what? Both sides of life are important. And sometimes even our mood problems, our anxiety problems, our fear stuff, all that can be related to some of that. Sometimes we're down in the dumps because we're not bringing a dream to fruition. And sometimes we're not bringing a dream to fruition because we're down in the dumps about a relationship. Here's what I found out about life. And I'll tell you this both as a person. I want to be a person one day if I, can finally grow up. But both as a person and as a psychologist, I can tell you, life is interconnected. Our relationships affect how we feel and how we perform. how we are performing affects our relationships. I mean, have you ever had a significant relationship where you couldn't depend on somebody to do what they said they were going to do? That affects the relationship. You know, a lot of times in marriage, for example, if both parties aren't coming to this as a team, and here's what we depend on you for, and here's what we depend on you for, and everybody's doing their part as this team, that performance side of life actually affects the relationship. I love the verse in the Bible where it says, we are fearfully and wonderfully made, that God has interwoven all of our makeup with all of these different parts, and you are all three. That's why we talk about all three on this program: the clinical world, how we feel, the relational world, how we're relating to each other, and the performance world, how we're accomplishing things. So if you got questions in any of those areas, call me. Here's our number: 844-940-2774. That's 844-940-2774. And you can get on to talk to us today. We're going to start by talking to Christine or Christina. I don't know which one it is. I'm going to ask her. She's calling us from somewhere in Canada. Christine or Christina?
Christine.
Christine, welcome to the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for taking my call. How are you?
You're very welcome. Fine, thank you. How can I help you?
So I have a question about how boundaries relate in where there are cultural differences. So in
very
my
good
husband
question,
and I
because
are from different cultures.
A lot of cultures have very, very different boundaries than other cultures, and sometimes it can get really, really confused. Some cultures are much more group oriented. Some cultures are much more individually oriented, and it can get conflictual. So tell me about yours.
Yeah, so my husband is Chinese and I'm Caucasian, so there's definitely more of like his family has more of a communal type of mindset and way of doing things. And I come from a family that's much more independent. And so, yeah, I'm wondering at what point am I, allowing boundaries to be violated versus like respecting cultural differences.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so, for example,
where's it a conflict for you? And let me start by asking this: are you the one that tends to wave the flag on these issues, or are you and he aligned, and you and he together, y'all are having conflict with how his family wants it?
I would say for the most part, I'm the one who flags issues, and we have a marriage counselor, so we've talked through some things, but yeah, usually he wouldn't think it's a problem, oh, well, yeah, no, this is fine, this is just how it is, like, and then, but I'm like, well,
you're like, no,
I don't know about that.
You're like, it's not a problem for me, or it is a problem for me. So are y'all in marriage counseling now?
Yes.
Okay. So give me a question. What area are you talking about? How can I help?
So I was wondering about like, so for example, we have a shared bank account with his father. And there's another bank account that I don't have access to that he shares with his father, and it's kind of bothered me. Like, it just seems like something where it's like, well, this seems like a physical example of not leaving and cleaving, but
yeah. When you say shared, when you say shared bank account, is that yours and his personal family bank account you share with his father, or is this his business account that he shares with his father? What are we talking about?
It's a personal bank account.
So this would be the stuff we pay: the light bill and the dog food and the diapers and
So
everything, rent,
we have
all
a
that.
separate account for those payments, but like my husband's paycheck goes into this bank account and our tax returns. And there was one year where like our tax returns went in and then they disappeared because mistakenly, like my father-in-law thought it was his tax return, and then we had to convince him, no, actually it was ours. And
Yeah. Are they in
and I just feel like that.
Are they in business together?
No, they're not. I think it's just like he grew up where they just had a pool of money and it was the family money. And right up until he got married, his dad handled his finances and used what he needed of my husband's money. And then my husband just took money as he needed to. And it was all in one pot.
Okay. So let's start with what would be simple. Okay. And what would be simple is if he went to his dad and said, this is kind of getting complicated. We get the numbers confused every now and then. And especially now that I'm married, I have a family of my own and my own bills and stuff like that. I think it's better, if we have our own account and we don't share this anymore. Like when I was, sorry, I had to adjust the camera. Like when I was in the family, that would be simple. Okay. Now,
Mm-hmm.
would that work?
I'm not sure. Like, there have been times where we've put up a boundary and then his response was like, well, like to my husband who presented the information, sometimes it's positive and he's like, okay, yes, that's fine. There was one time where I think he was a bit upset about it and said, like, your goal is, you're supposed to make me happy. You're my son. You have to make me happy. So I don't know
Okay.
if this, like, how he'll respond
If
to
this
this.
would fall into that. Well, here's one thing that I would think about. I would start with the most practical ones, and also the ones that are the most like, and I'm going to call this, what would be the right word to say this? That the ones that would be most oftentimes practiced even within that culture in this culture. For example, I think you'd probably find a lot of couples, right, that are in the Western world that have, one person from China or wherever, where there are a lot of like mixed couples like this that do have their own bank accounts. That's not a everybody in that culture does that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so I would start with the things that are most practical and most impinging on life. And I would start with some kind of conversation. And this probably be very good to talk to your marriage counselor about, to get your husband. See, he's got some issues with his own dad that get overlaid in this. Because when a dad says your responsibility is to make me happy, that's going to interfere with your husband's kind of life, even if he weren't married, right? That's just kind of like he's got to figure out kind of with his dad sort of thing. But one of the things that I would want to do is just take the real practical ones and address those and sit down with them and say, there's a few things that we want to be really, really, really respectful of the family and just talk about the family and have really close relationships with you guys and this, that, and the other. But there are these particular practical things that we want to change A, B, or C. And we want to let you know it has nothing to do with us loving you or anything like this. It has to do with like solving practical kinds of day-to-day things we need to get done, and go in affirming the relationship, affirming the connection, but also trying to solve some practical things before you get into the much bigger issues. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So start small and And
start
yeah.
practical, but also
Mhm.
affirm. See what
Okay.
you want to make sure in any kind of conflict, and not say this to everybody who's listening. Any kind of conflict is going to go much better if you start in the beginning by affirming what you want the outcome to be. So when we sit down with somebody and we say, we love you, and what we want to do is have a really, really good relationship together where we're all one family and we're not off on our own and separated and y'all don't know what we're doing. We want to be a strong family, together as well as have our own. We're for that. So we're not trying to interrupt that at all. What we're trying to do is get our banking done here. So you start with affirming and decreasing the fear of what somebody's actually afraid of. Now, what I'd like for you to do off on your own with the marriage counselor is you and your husband talk about with your counselor, um, how aligned are we on some of these questions, and when does some of the stuff that our marriage need get you into personal conflict with your dad? Because that's what's getting triggered here. Ultimately, this is really about, like you said, the leaving and cleaving. He's got some issues with his dad that he's going to have to look at and resolve just in general for his own well-being. And I would want the two of you, instead of playing tug of war around those, I would want you to be his ally, and y'all talking about those together with a counselor of what are some of the main issues he has with his dad. Because right now the marriage issues and those issues are kind of getting all balled up at once. I hope that's helpful to you.
Yes, thank you very much. It was helpful.
Okay, tough deals. I'd say in summary, though, because a lot of people are listening who may not have that particular cultural difference, but you do have cultures, even if they're not, if it's not about ethnicity, races or countries or, East and West and North and South and, you know, mixed religious background, whatever it is, every family has a culture, right? And basically, part of what goes into a culture is there are norms and there are rules, and sometimes these rules are written down and sometimes they're not. But when you violate them, when you violate them, right? Because a group enforces its norms. And if somebody violates that, somebody's going to stamp it out or give them the cold shoulder or get upset or whatever it is, right? That's going to happen. So, what's best? What's best is when we talk about these things and when you understand and validate the differences that we have with each other, and we try to meet each other's needs to retain the great things that are from your culture and the great things that are from, you know, my side of the fence. I'm from the South. My wife's from California. Very, very, very different cultures, do a lot of things differently. But one of the cool things is we've tried to have our family embody both of those and have our kids understand and respect and experience both of those. Now, I know that's a lot simpler than East and West, like she was talking about, but wherever, not everybody is from that context. A lot of people are from other cultural differences. Some of the most brutal ones we see are faith differences, even within the same faith. I mean, people have these big squabbles and they can't listen to each other. I don't know how you resolve a conflict without sitting down and first understanding each other. Sometimes you start to understand somebody and you find out what is it about that is threatening to them. See, bank accounts are bank accounts. It's what that's tethered to. Is it tethered to you're no longer thinking I'm your father? Is it tethered to you might abandon us and never come back? Is it tethered to if I can't watch the money, you're not going to take care of me in my old age? We don't know what things are tethered to until we listen. So sometimes we got to start affirming our relationship. We want to end up in a good place, but we want to understand what's important to each of us first. Because sometimes the very position that we're holding on to is not the real issue. It's about something else. Okay. Give me a call, 844-940-2774. This is a Dr. Cloud program, and we get to talk about all sorts of things here. Let me see here. We're going to go back and talk to Catherine, who's calling us from Chicago, it looks like. If I can get Catherine there. There she is. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Dr. Cloud. Hi, how are you?
Well, I'm very well, thank you. Welcome to the show. How can I help you?
Thank you. Well, I had a question about grief. My mom was recently diagnosed with ALS. And she actually, we found out that she was diagnosed a year ago and she didn't tell anybody, and we just found out.
I'm so sorry. How old is your mom?
She's almost 75.
75.
And so she was diagnosed a year ago. We didn't know. And she was then diagnosed by 2 neurologists just recently. But she refuses to believe her diagnosis. And she also has borderline personality disorder. So what's hard for us is her kids.
So you've had struggles with her forever, probably, right?
Yes. Yes. And so what's really difficult is to try to figure out how to navigate her wanting to, care for her well, but also knowing how to healthily grieve not just her impending death, but also pieces of how she won't let us care for her because she won't accept her diagnosis. And so a lot of us are just, I have a lot of siblings. There are 11 siblings in my family. And so all of us are trying to figure out how to support her, but then also she won't let us do that. And so I guess then my question is how to grieve. This is a very strange situation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah. So when you say your main question is how do you grieve it? You know what? It's here's why it's complicated, because you're grieving something intangible, which is different than like when we lose somebody, they died, they're gone. We know what we're grieving, right? When my parents died, I lost them. They're gone.
Right.
And it's very, very hard, but it's clean. What you're talking about is a progressive grieving of her personhood that would show up, right, and be there in ways that you had connecting with her. And that's kind of a slow process, as is the disease, right? And so I think it's helpful to define it like that in the beginning and with your siblings, and probably begin to name that. And are you doing the grieving mostly with your siblings? Are y'all grieving together? Is that where it's happening?
It's more of I don't even know if we're all very sad, obviously. We're very sad about her diagnosis and the prognosis, and also, but I think mostly we don't know how to grieve it because we know we're going to lose our parent. We know we're going to lose a mom.
Do you know roughly how long she has?
No, I mean the diagnosis is 3 to 5 years from onset of symptoms, but this has been going on for a while, but we don't know exactly how long because she hasn't told us. So it could be a year, it could be 3 years, we don't know. But I think we're just kind of swirling it around in our heads right now, trying to figure out how to grieve for ourselves. We're trying to grieve the loss, the impending loss, grieving the loss also of like a relationship that is very difficult, grieving that she won't let us love her and care for her.
Well, you know
there's
what?
just a lot of different pieces.
There are a lot of different pieces, and what you are doing right there is exactly what I would suggest that you do. And then I'm going to connect it to one or two other things. What you're doing is you're starting to isolate what the dynamics are, and you're grieving those in particular, right? And so, for example, when she gets a loss of functioning in some way, you're going to begin to feel this. And I want you to feel it and notice it and be aware of it, then take it to, the siblings or whoever you are closest to and talk to. And you say something like, I said something to mom today and she looked at me and she couldn't express her answer. And I remember when we used to have long talks, and I'm really going to miss that. Or whatever. I want you to notice the specifics and name those and process those as they happen off with whoever you do this. A. B, you're going to also find it helpful, I think, if you can get with the neurologists or the support systems around here, around it, around the illness, and they're going to be able to kind of give you a rough progression of how this goes. First she's going to lose this and the mobility and their speech and all of that.
Right.
So you can kind of begin to conceptually walk into that knowing what we're grieving and normalize it. And that's going to let it kind of A, be recognized earlier, but B, put some labels around and express it. The third thing is this, that I would try to, as you're looking at those things coming, and I've had close friends who have been through this, the degree to which whatever capacity she has now that you're going to lose, I would engage in experiences with those. As long as she can still do this, let's do this. And another thing
sorry.
Well, another thing that a lot of people I think find helpful is if there are things that stories you want to hear from her and record in video. Mom, tell us about this and that. Remember the story about, and a lot of times people find that really, really helpful to capture a lot of her and her life before. I know, we didn't know my dad was getting dementia before he got it. He lived to be 94. He got dementia kind of the last like 3 years or so, and we had to put him in an assisted living place. And it just so happened that a couple of years before then, I was back there and I got him and a few of his old crony friends that he had for 100 years that I grew up with. These guys were like sort of my uncles and not uncles, but his best friends. And we had a session one night where I sat them down and I recorded a couple of hours of them. Remember that time and them telling those stories? And it is a treasure. It's just a treasure.
Yeah.
So
I love
a lot
those
of things
ideas.
like that. A lot of things like that. I've got to use some other callers, but I hope that's helpful to you. And I would also join some support group or something of people, of families who are going through this.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay. My heart goes out to you. I hope it goes as best as it can go. Okay. God bless.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. This is the Dr. Cloud Show. You know what? Life is like that, right? Sometimes we treat it like like it just is like it is, we know, in a normal time, like this is going to go on forever. Like, everything. I mean, think about 3 months ago. Did any of us have any idea that our lives would look like they look right now in this pandemic? I mean, even as few as 3 months ago, roughly. I guess I don't know. I'm lost in the math of it all. We've been here for, it seems like, forever. I had to drive somewhere the other day, and I went out, and I don't know, particular time of day or whatever, but there's a lot of cars everywhere. There's a lot of traffic, and I went, whoa, I remember this, but it was like I had to remember it. It's like it's a different time, and life is like that. And one of the things that all of us have to do in order to get through that next season is something that, there's a lot of different words we use that load on this factor we call resilience. But one of those one of those traits is openness and embracing of change. Because if we're open and embrace change, even the process of losing someone, and we prepare for it and we know it's coming, we don't know how it's going to feel, we don't know, but we know, and we're embracing it and we're naming it, then we move through those seasons better. And so whether you're in an uptime or a downtime or facing into one, remember, it's your community and the ability to name the things that are happening and embrace them as, the only way to the other side is through. We're going to have to go through this. We're going to take each other's hands and we're going to go through it, but we're going to name it. We're going to put words to it. And when we put words to it, we're going to lean into it and we're going to feel what it feels like to go through it. And in that, here's the good news, that God has actually designed a process by which we metabolize life experience and we leave it behind. We leave it behind in grief. We leave it behind in forgiveness. We leave it behind in receiving forgiveness. We leave it behind in letting our mistakes go by. We metabolize experience. Now, when you metabolize experience, it's like metabolizing food. Now, think about this. When you go through something in life, you're ingesting the experiences of life, whether that's a victory or a defeat, whether it's a loss or a gain, whether it's a failure or a wound or betrayal, whatever it is, we go through experiences. Those have got to be metabolized. So you take in food, what happens? Well, what your system does when we metabolize something is it breaks it down, and it extracts from it what it can use, and then it eliminates the waste. And we leave the waste behind us. Now, here's what happens. Some people don't metabolize experiences. And so they're not leaving anything behind. They're kind of walking backwards through life. Every step forward we take, we're bringing the past into that because we haven't left it behind. And I don't mean in denial, I mean metabolizing. We're supposed to walk forward and leave the waste behind us. And that's what grief and forgiveness and letting things go does. But to do that, we have to embrace the experiences. And what I love about her call is she's going into this and embracing the fullness of this grief. I want to know, how do I do this better? And I can tell you, when that's done well, like I think she's going to do, you'll go out the other side and you will have retained things from that experience, like wisdom, like understanding, like empathy, like strength, like resilience, and take those forward. Having gone through that, you'll have a lot of feelings for other people that you didn't have before. You'll have a lot of answers. You'll have a lot of things. God is able to bring good out of horrible situations. And through grief, we leave the pain behind. Okay. Hope that helps you. This is the Dr. Cloud Show. 844-940-2774 is the number. I want you to call. We talked a lot of about a lot of different stuff on this show. We had a call about boundaries in marriage with the in-laws, and then a call about grief and all those topics. What if you want to go further about all of these life topics? Let me be your coach. I want to come alongside you in a very particular way. You can become a subscriber to boundaries.me. Now, boundaries.me is in a web page, right? If you go to, write this down wherever you are, you can do it after the show. Go to boundaries.me and become a subscriber. And what that means is I come alongside you, and I've got a bunch of courses, many courses, M-A-N-Y, many, lots of courses, but many courses, M-I-N-I courses, over 60 of these courses on dealing with grief and how do you structure a conversation to talk to a father-in-law like that. Do we have a script? Can we think about it? Can we plan? Yes, we can. And once we know, we plan these things, or how to break up well, or how to have a difficult conversation about finances, or how do you heal from a betrayal, or how do you overcome anxiety? All of those kinds of topics, and we're adding new ones each and every month. Become a subscriber to boundaries.me, and we have a great community that's building there as well. Boundaries.me. Want to see you there. Okay, in fact, we were just talking yesterday. You know what we're going to do with the boundaries.me community? We're going to try to plan some events around the country. So we're working on that right now. We said, we got a lot of subscribers to boundaries.me, and what a great community of growers in life. And we're going to come, hopefully, to a city near you at some point. We're working on it, and come meet everybody and have a seminar and an all-day event to go further about this stuff. So stay tuned for that. Okay, we're going to go back to the phones, and Mary Beth, who has been patiently holding. Mary Beth, I think you get the Patience Award so far. How are you doing?
Hello?
Hello.
I'm doing well. Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I just gave you the Patience Award.
Oh, thank you. And thank you
You're
for
welcome.
taking my call.
You're welcome. Tell me how I can help.
Well, I've been out of work, like a lot of people, for several months now, and I've always wanted to be a professional writer. That's been my dream. So while I've been off from work, I've been working at that, and as I'm looking for a job.
And what is the work that you've been off of? Was it in writing in some way?
It was, yeah. It was not creative writing like I do, but it was for a software company. So.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So you've had a writing job. You just want to go into a particular kind of creative writing.
Right. And I would really like to do more freelancing. While I've been off, I actually got a contract for a novel that I've written. And so things are going okay there, but I'm really...
You sold a novel? Do you know how hard that is?
Well, yeah.
I'm a meme right now. I'm doing the congratulatory dance here. That's hard. I know a lot of people that want to. Do you know how many people come up to me and say, because I've written a bunch of books, right? And they come up and say, "Oh, I've always wanted to write a book," and I go, "Why don't you?" And they go, "Well, I just don't have time." You know how many times we hear that? Yeah, you do.
Mm-hmm.
You have time.
I've heard that.
I mean, just write 100 words a day. You do that long enough, you'll have a book. It would have happened by now. Just start small and do it. Anyway, don't get me started on that one. That's a big, because I never have time to write books. And you write books, you write them in little pieces. It works. Anyway, that's not why you called, to hear me gripe about that. Why did you call me? How can I help? I want to congratulate you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited, but it's not making a lot of money for me. And I do have a job prospect, but it's not in the writing field at all. And it's not full time. It's a contract job that would only last for 8 months. And I'm trying to decide, whether or not to take that job. And my question is, how does a person know when to jump in and go after their dream, or take the job and keep working on the dream in the off time? I don't know how to discern that. And it feels selfish to take a job. I mean,
Why would
I'm
it be?
thankful for the opportunity.
Do you support people that are depending on you that would take away from?
No, no, my husband works, so we're okay, but we would need me to have a salary eventually.
Okay, so that's kind of, I mean, that enters into it. When you said selfish, a lot of times people want to go pursue their dream. It's going to absolutely wreck the life of somebody else. And that's when I think of
Mhm.
it being, quote, selfish. A lot of times, a couple, for example, they'll sit down together and they'll go through a lean time while somebody goes and pursues something, for example. Selfish is really I think when you do it for yourself without any regard to how it affects somebody else and not including them in the process and the plan. So I
Mhm.
wouldn't judge it necessarily as selfish just because you want to do something that you want to do. A lot of times, couples will put off life while somebody goes back and gets a degree, for example. But it's still ultimately it's gonna be a team play, even though it's somebody's individual dream. So I would, you got to talk about how it affects y'all, but if you're okay and he doesn't, he's not crying foul, then the real question is um, this one: Are you? First of all, I'm going to ask this: There are some people that are, and we can almost group the population in some ways into two different groups. And this is how we define good and bad. All right. Some people define good in life as not losing something. Bad in life is if I lose something. All right. You got that?
Mhm.
Other people define good in life as getting more of something, and bad in life as not getting more. So if they preserve and have security, that's the worst life possible for them. The other kind of people are that if I just want to be secure and safe, and I don't care about, reaching the stars or whatever. And so sometimes I think you have to get internal a little bit and say, how will I feel? Because you're going to drive this dream forward. For you, it's a good thing because you're not talking about either or. What you're talking about is speed, how fast you get there, right? Do
Right.
you
Yeah.
take this other
Mhm.
job because it would slow you down? It wouldn't keep you from doing it. So here's what I
Right.
would ask. Here's what I would ask. Two things. How am I going to feel if 8 months from now I've only been able to move the ball forward this amount, but I've also got a big pile of money to fuel my next step? Or how am I going to feel in the opposite scenario? How am I going to feel if I tried that and I put us at risk financially for those 8 months? Because there's
Mhm.
no right answer here. It, some people are great, taking risks and doing stuff that, when I when I started my hospital company, I started out of a literally a broom closet was the only extra space we had. John Townsend and I were in practice. We had no money, we had no staff, we had nothing. We had a little broom closet that we could put a computer in the office suite there for an assistant that we hired to help us get started. And I didn't get my first paycheck, I think, until year 3. And I was working 100 hours a week,
Mhm.
literally. But you know what? I didn't care. I was single. I could eat on frozen TV dinners. Who cared? I wasn't affecting anybody. And to me, not going after that dream of building that company would have felt like a death blow to my soul. I had to do it.
Mm.
Now, later in life, there's some dreams I could think about going and pursuing. They would have consequences for our life and my family that I don't want to have, and I'm fine with not doing that. That's what you have to ask yourself, because you're talking about a
Yeah.
speed function here, it sounds like. Is that right?
Hmm. Yeah, it is.
So
Yeah, it feels like
it feels like what?
if I take the job, then you know, you're right. It would delay. It would slow me down for 8 months, but then I can see what you're saying about having to look forward. You know, how am I going to feel on either side of those choices? That does make
Yeah.
sense.
Play the movie. That's what I like to do. I like to, how am I going to feel then if I didn't do this, or if I did do this? And another thing is, that you got to factor in here is sometimes there's a loss of momentum. There's a window, and you
Mhm.
release a book or whatever, and there's a momentum around that, and you don't want to really interrupt that. Other times it kind of doesn't matter. So I would ask, am I going to lose some momentum that I have to worry about losing? If not, then maybe not. But here's the other thing that I would be: is this other job, is it full time?
It's Yes, it's full time. I did think about asking them if they would do part time, and then I could still work on my writing, but I haven't done that.
Well, here's why I ask this: do you have kids?
I do, but they are out of the house.
Okay. Here's another thing I would ask before I make the decision. Um, a lot of things that you're talking about, especially with writing, um, can be done in little bitty snippets. Even what I've written 40 something books. I've never taken time off to write a book. There
Hmm.
have been a handful of times where I've gone away for like 3 to 4 days in the beginning of a book to kind of get it conceptualized, and then maybe once in the middle. I've worked 40, 50 hours a week for decades and never taken time off to write a book. So that's just
Hmm.
me, but I think we can do things in little bitty snippets as well, an hour here and there. I don't know how you work. Anyway, those are some of the things I'd be thinking about as I think about this. But you're well on the way. If you wrote a book that somebody bought, go girl. The other thing that I
Yeah,
would
thank you.
suggest to you is build your platform of eyeballs. If you got a website with
Hmm.
little stories and articles and all of that, because people need to know about your writing, and they can't come join this party if they don't know about it. So do
Yeah,
something along those lines. Okay. Hope that's
I
helpful
will.
to you.
Thank you.
All
It
right.
has been.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you for your call, and have fun back there in Chicagoland. This is the Dr. Cloud Show. Let me see here. How are we doing on time? Today has flown by. It seems like we have. Gosh, look at this, 150. How did that happen, guys? It's our hours running up. I wonder if you know what? Here's the thought. I don't know. I don't even know if this is possible. Maybe sometime maybe there's a day we could do 2 hours or here and there. But one of the things I do know that our ability to have any time to do this program, and it is happening, you're doing it. I've got to thank you for it. But for us to continue to do this, it takes a lot of time from the team. I want to say another great shout out to those guys. Albie and Jessica and Greg are the ones that mainly work on it. Um, but it takes a lot of time from them, and we have to it takes organization time around, and so all of that meaning, for this to be worth it for the time invested and worth it for your time, we got to know that it's working and that people like the program and that you want to show up. So please share it if you do like it. Tell your friends about it. and come join the incredible community that's being built. You know, Facebook and the other platforms, there's people like joining in and talking about each other and sharing stories. And I had that problem and giving encouragement and giving answers and all that. And it's really, really cool. And also, I also hear from a lot of you guys that are from the boundaries.me community. And if you're not a member, let me mention that again. Go to boundaries.me and hopefully you'll become a subscriber there and join that great community of people that are growing in all of these ways. So share the program and we'll be here even longer. Let's go to the phones. I've got time for, I think we can do one more quick question. Do we still have Carrie? Is Carrie still there? Who was calling us from
Yes,
Tennessee?
hello.
Hello, Carrie. Welcome to the program.
Hi. It's a pleasure to meet you in person. I've read a lot of your books and went to
Cool.
Christ Church in Nashville growing up. So you and Dr. Cloud came there a few times, I think.
I am Dr. Cloud. So when Dr. Cloud was there, I was
I
there.
meant you and you and Dr. Townsend, I mean.
And Dr.
Back
Johnson.
way
Yeah.
back in the day. Yeah, well, I'll give you the cliff notes because I know you're running out of time here. So basically, during the pandemic, I went through a breakup of my 5-year relationship. I have a little girl and 2 boys. I raised the 2 boys alone, and my little girl is 3 years old. So I basically started all over and had a lot riding on this relationship. So he left suddenly, no warning,
Now,
and
wait a
we
minute.
had
Hold on.
ended up.
Wait, stop for a second. 2 boys and a little girl. Is that what you said?
So my boys are 22 and 18. So I raised them.
Oh,
by
they were from a
myself.
different relationship.
Yes, years and
Okay,
years
got it.
ago.
All right, but
So
the little
I
girls
raised
from
my
this
boys.
relationship of the last 5 years.
Yeah, that's right. And
Okay.
so it took a lot to give it another go because I had just finished raising my boys by myself. And
Yeah.
so, and I used a lot of your books and the Boundaries books and 9 Things You Simply Must Do. And, you know, so I've applied a lot of that and I've raised them with no debt. And because of a lot of those principles, they have turned out amazing. They work hard. I've had absolutely a beautiful relationship with my boys. So now my little girl's 3
Can we
years
just
old.
stop and we're going to stop and congratulate that one for a second.
Thank
You can do it.
you.
And
I'm so proud of that.
My good friend Dave Ramsey would do the Dave Ramsey.
Yeah,
You know,
I used to babysit for him and Sharon.
Debt-free screen
Yeah.
right here for you. Okay, so good job.
Woohoo!
So what is your question then? We only got a couple of minutes.
Okay,
What is your
so
question?
there were some storms that came here through Columbia,
Yes.
Tennessee, near Nashville the other day, and there were 90-mile-per-hour winds, and a tree fell on my house while I was in the hallway with my 3 kids. And for the first time ever, I just came so face to face with death that I had a reckoning. And I've always felt that my faith in God was I have a strong conviction, but in that moment, it felt like no one was there. And I got very scared. And so basically since then, I've had these recurring like visions of like fear of death and more storms. And the next night, some storms rolled through and I drove all the way to Birmingham to get a hotel to avoid the storms. And again, the power went out and I was so glad I evaded it, but I just had this feeling of running and that no one's there. And so anyway, my question is, I've just come out of a relationship with a narcissist, and it was very malignant, and I knew I needed to go, and nothing short of this pandemic and him bailing on me could have gotten me out of it. And I'm thankful because I needed to do it, but I have let all my relationships fall to the wayside, and now I'm rebuilding as fast as I can. But I wonder if my lack of safety net has anything to do with that moment, or is that just a reckoning we come to as we age and start to do things alone or start to get sick? And it just feels like it's just me and God, and there's no one to help, and there's no one above me. My grandparents are gone, and my parents are aging, and I just feel so extremely alone and uncovered. And I just wonder if my faith has been imaginary all this time, because when it just felt like it was just trial by fire, and I realized there just wasn't much there. And I don't know if it's because I'm just so isolated.
I understand the dynamics.
Question is,
what's the question?
I've never felt quite so alone. So my question is, if I rebuild my relationships and get my safety net back, will these moments of isolation feel less painful, or are these just part of getting older and I have a lot of this creepy feeling to look forward to?
No.
Okay, that's a relief.
No, I don't want you feeling that. No, no,
Oh,
no, no,
good.
no. No, 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 no. But let me say a couple
Okay.
things and then I gotta hop off. But I'm gonna first of all, you went through something. If I went to the psychiatric diagnostic manual, there's something called
Hmm.
PTSD, right? You've heard of that?
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
the definition to qualify for that is you have you've got to go through an experience that is determined to be outside the scope of normal human experiences. All right. It
Hmm.
is not
Yeah.
normal to be sitting in your house and have a tree come through the roof and threaten you within
Yeah.
inches of your life. That's not
Yeah.
normal. So by
Hmm.
definition, that's more. I was talking about metabolizing experience earlier. That's more
Yeah. Like the
experience
log chain.
than your system can metabolize. So here's what
Yeah,
happens.
definitely.
That experience, that moment, you're not going to be aware of any relationship because your system
Right.
goes on to actually a biochemical explosion of all
Hmm.
of these hormones and stress hormones and all that, which actually reduces your capacity to understand. It's called fight or flight or freeze, right? Reduces your
Yeah.
capacity to feel like somebody's with you, reduces your capacity to experience time, reduce your capacity
Yeah.
to regulate a bunch of stuff. And so in that moment, you're just like in this moment of shock. And what happens is
Yeah.
when it's more than we can metabolize, that gets frozen by the actual chemicals themselves to to cells in your brain that have to do with memory, and it just gets frozen and starts like blowing up all the time. That's why you keep
Hmm.
re-experiencing it in
Yeah.
hypervigilance and oh my gosh, what's going to happen? We shake and you hear a
Exactly.
noise and all that. So that's normal. I'm
Hmm.
going to tell
Everything
you
makes me
that's
jump.
exactly that's normal. But what's got to
Hmm.
happen is that's got to be processed. That's got to be metabolized, like I was talking about earlier. So what I want you to do
Yeah.
is, if it's getting really bad, go sit down with a counselor and say who specializes in PTSD, and say, you know what, I think I
Hmm.
got some PTSD going through here, or going
Yeah.
on here, and begin to process that. So I want to answer that one first. Secondly, if you have been what would be the word? Here's the word I use sometimes. It sounds like you were kidnapped in this relationship, which means there are certain kinds of
Yes.
people that unplug you from your support system and becomes all about them and their
Hmm.
world. You see this in dating a lot of
Yep.
times, and none about your friends and your family and integrating
Exactly.
together. And then the breakup happens, and boom, you're left all alone.
Yep.
And
That's what happened.
that's part of what's going on here. And also, I want you to be
Hmm.
on a very, very structured path of
Hmm.
rebuilding those relationships. And you may even have to go somewhere in the beginning where there's structured groups. Go to a
Hmm.
PTSD group, go to a small group somewhere, go to celebrate recovery, go to somewhere where they actually hang out a shingle and
Structured.
say, hey, we're here for people that are going through grief or going through pain, and start there and really
Okay.
begin to rebuild this. As you do all of that, what's going to happen is that's going to change the balance of undergirding, sort of over taxing of the system, and it's going to
Hmm.
regain as you're working on the specific trauma, getting your relationships, back underneath you, moving out of the
Yeah.
letting go of all this stuff, and you know, you're gonna do well. I think you're gonna
Yeah.
get
It's
back
the
to a good
process.
place. It
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean bad things in your future. Okay, wish I could talk
Yes.
longer. I got to hustle here,
Thank you.
but
All right.
you got a lot of
It was
good
a pleasure. Thank you.
resilience, and so tap into that as you go forward. This is the Dr. Cloud Show. We are out of time once again. Don't know how that happens. Seriously, I sit here. It just goes by. It just goes by. I wish the COVID thing was going by like that fast. Gosh, how long? Lord, help us each day. But in the meantime, let's help each other. You know what? Do something for me today. Reach out and call somebody. Just say a little prayer. God, who needs a little encouragement today? See one or two people that come to mind. Text them. Say, I was just thinking about you. Hope you're doing all right. You matter to me. I was thinking about your sense of humor and how you make me smile, or some other way that you add to my life. And I just wanted to express my gratitude to you that you are my friend and that you're in my life. And I hope you're doing okay. Offer a little encouragement. Do that for a couple of people. Just do it as a favor for me because I don't know those people. So just do it. Do it for me. Secondly, if you're the one that needs encouragement, I want you to do the same thing. I want you to reach out to a couple of people. Say, I was feeling kind of alone today. I was feeling a little discouraged today. Just need to talk to somebody, need to hear from, need to know somebody loves me. Do that. Either side of that equation, you know what happens when we start to do that? Knitted together. You know, the New Testament says that our hearts should be knitted together in love, where we form this fabric. You can take everything everybody says out there about everything and every single problem. And what do we need for all of these problems? We need this safety net. And the safety net is always people. It's people you're connected to. There's where the answers are going to come from. Our safety nets, our relationships, our communities, our alliances. You know, it's the lone sheep that the wolf always gets when they get separated from the pack. So find the right pack, stay connected to that pack, join our pack here. Go to Facebook and log in and join the community around this show. Say hi to some people. Tell them what you're thinking about, what you're dealing with, and ask anybody else if you ever had this and watch what happens. These people in this audience, they are amazing. I've just been so impressed. So impressed with, first of all, the wisdom they bring, the experience they bring, but also the support that they're giving to each other. And then lastly, if you want to go further, come join us on boundaries.me. Go to boundaries.me, go to that website, become a subscriber, and join that community. And we're having a lot of great things happen there. Okay. So until then, let me ask, I think we're on at 1:00 again tomorrow, Pacific time. I think we are. Let me ask my team here. They're coming back with the answer. 1 p.m. right here Pacific time tomorrow. We will be here. And until then, share the program with your friends and we'll get more and more people and we'll keep doing this. Okay. God bless you guys.